Hey everyone, this is another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam Thrash and I am your host. Thanks for listening. This week I am continuing in a certain regard, I would say, my conservation crusade that was unplanned and not really something that I was, intending to go uh, very deep into this spring, but we've had several episodes on our show, um, conservation related, talking about different things going on. Some focuses on Colorado and the wolves and the lions and everything going on over there. And this episode falls into that category for the most part. My guest is a gentleman named John Kesler. John is a Colorado resident. He's a passionate hunter and outdoorsman. He's a full-time guide hunting and fishing elk, mule deer, all sorts of different stuff up there in Colorado. He has formerly worked for the CPW. He has a degree in wildlife biology, and he found us on TikTok. That's where this interaction and our relationship with John began, because he actually commented on one of our reels from episode 225 with Tim Burgess, our own Colorado resident on our team, when he was and I were discussing some matters on wolves and that kind of stuff, and that led to a conversation in the messenger section of TikTok with John about the same subject, and eventually was like, let's have this guy on the show. Like, he's very well educated and clearly keeping up with what's going on, and has some very respectable opinions about this kind of stuff and what's going on in Colorado right now, which again is why I invited him to come on the show. So it's a great conversation. We talk about all these things, get kind of a unique and detailed perspective, in my opinion, on some of the matters at hand. And then we also get to talk about what it's like being a guide in Colorado and some of the awesome and funny, crazy experiences that come with that. It's a great conversation. I enjoy getting to know John, and look forward to having him on the show again. I hope he's a returning guest in the future for you guys. So we'll get John in here in a second. We'll take care of the housekeeping real quick. First and foremost, podcast is brought to you guys in partnership with Hoot Camo. If you guys are looking for a good quality set of camouflage that is not going to break the bank, then you need to go to hootcamo.com and check out what they have going on over there. The patterns are extremely versatile. They adapt to different environments. I absolutely love how these patterns function actually out there in the field. The gear is high quality. It's comfortable. It's durable. It's warm. Holds up well against the elements. I've worn it in Texas, Colorado, and Idaho thus far. I have no complaints. You guys need to go check out Hoot Camo. Pick you up a hat or a shirt, a full set, or anywhere in between, some of their lifestyle gear, whatever you are so inclined to do. And if you use the code FALLOBSESSION15 at checkout, that's going to save you guys some money. Hoot Camo, hootcamo.com. I got another discount code for you guys, and that's from Trophy Edits. And the discount code is Fall Obsession, all one word, lowercase letters, Fall Obsession, and that will save you guys some money with them. Trophy Edits is like digital taxidermy. We all have mounts on our wall that pay respect to an animal and a memory in our past, and photographs can do the same with memorable times that are spent in the woods with loved ones, or maybe it's also a killer, an animal that you want to have framed and put on your wall. Trophy Edits will make those pictures absolutely explode. I am not kidding, guys. The professional editing services that they offer is just incredible. So if you guys are wanting to have that picture framed and on the wall forever, you need to have Trophy Edits do the work for you, and use that discount code Fall Obsession to save you some money. Go to the link in this podcast description. That will take you over there and check out what they got going on. Bear River Archery is the official bow shop of the Fall Obsession team here in North Texas. If you are in North Texas, you need to go up to Van Alstyne and check out Bear River and let Justin and the guys know that Fall Obsession sent you. They will take good care of you. They will take care of all of your archery needs. If you guys know me and my history with archery, you know I am picky, and I am very selective with who I will let work on my bows. I will let Justin work on my bows. They do great stuff up there at Bear River, and I actually got a new bow on the way, and it's a little bit different than what we've been rocking in previous years. I'm excited for it, and I'm I'm going to save it for you guys to find out a later date on the social pages. But yeah, I got a new bow coming up there at the Bear River shop, and I can't wait to get it in my hands. Go check out Bear River Archery if you are anywhere close to North Texas. And again, let Justin and the guys know that you came from Fall Obsession. The Outdoor Call radio app is a podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, plays on there on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications. And there's also tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love on there. Go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It's free. You can start streaming immediately, and make sure that you follow their Facebook page because you can catch their live radio show broadcast throughout the week on that Facebook Live if you're not local to the radio stations. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call radio app. Go check them out. I want to point you guys in the direction of our 2025 turkey hunt competition that we're having over here at Fall Obsession. We do this every year, and this year is the best one yet. I am so excited for this. We changed a few things up to make it better for you guys. You guys can win cash money. We have a cash pot for first, second, and third place, and that pot is based on the number of people that register. So the more people that get in on this competition, the bigger those cash pots are going to be. So tell all your friends about it too. And then we have tons of gear that is going to be awarded or given away. The first, second, and third place people are all getting a gift card for Hoot Camo, a substantial gift card, so you guys can order whatever camo you want. First place is getting a pair of Wiley X glasses, and then we have two different sweepstakes that we are running alongside of the turkey hunt competition as a part of it. The first one is a gear cache sweepstakes where multiple sweepstakes ticket holders are going to take home different items from our event partners. Wiley X is throwing some more glasses in there for you guys. We have Vantage Point Archery. They're an American-made broadhead company. They're throwing in a pack of broadheads for one of our winners. And we got some other gear partners that are joining in on the fun. And then the second gear sweepstakes is for a hunt. You guys can win a $9,000 safari package with News on Safaris. One ticket holder's taking that home. So lots of stuff to be had with the 2025 turkey hunt competition. All you guys got to do is register. Pick up those sweepstake tickets if you're interested. You don't have to, but you can if you want. And kill a turkey. Send in your bird. That's all that you guys have to do this year. You don't have to travel. You don't have to hunt anywhere that you don't normally hunt. Literally hunt turkeys like you always do and just register the bird in the competition, and you could win all of this great stuff. So the 2025 Turkey Hunt Competition, if you want to learn more, go to fallobsession.com/hunt-competition. That's where you can learn more, or just go to the website and it'll pop up on there and you guys can click over and check it out. We hope to see you competing. Thank you guys again for listening to another podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, I want to point you in the direction of that follow or subscribe button, whatever is up there for you. Make sure that you are following along with the show and that your notifications are turned on so you know every week when we drop new podcast episodes. We always appreciate that. If you like watching the podcast videos, those are on our YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed over there because we post more than just podcasts on there. We also post our films, our hunting shows, our gear reviews. All of our video content goes to the YouTube channel in one way or another, so make sure you are subscribed over there. The social media pages, anywhere that you guys are active on, Fall Obsession has an account, and we post daily on there with frequent updates from our staff and our team. Fallobsession.com is the website. That's where all of our content filters through. You guys can go on there, explore around, check out everything we have going on. And then if you are not streaming our shows on Carbon TV, you need to be. Carbon TV is like Netflix for hunting, but it's better because it's free for you guys. So be sure that you check out our 4 different series that are on that platform. This podcast streams on there, as well as our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, and our 2 different hunting shows titled Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. All those can be found and streamed on demand from Carbon TV. Go download the app, put it on your smart TV, pull it up on your computer, whatever it might be, and start watching today. All right, we got all that out of the way. Thank you guys for bearing with me. We're going to get John in here and head on over to our conversation with him. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Another Fall Obsession podcast coming at you. I am on here with John Kesler is my guest this week. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast, man.
Man, thank you for having me. Your first TikTok comment that ever just weaseled his way into a podcast.
You actually are, man, and that was one thing I was going to hit on and mention for our listeners is that this was. We haven't had a guest come on the show like this before, where they comment on a reel and that starts the exchange, and next thing I know, I'm like, man, this cat's got some good stuff to say. I need to have him on the show.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But man, for our listeners and everything, because you are coming onto the show as a guest from TikTok. That's literally how we got acquainted. Tell us and our listeners who you are and your background.
So, like I said, I'm John Kesler. I'm a fishing hunting guide here in Gunnison, Colorado. Have been for the last 6, 7 years. Grew up, born and raised in Colorado. I have a biology degree from Western State here in Gunnison. I worked for the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for 2 summers. After that, for the fisheries biologist, and then worked at a marina, and then I started my guide business. So I'm pretty deep in the weeds when it comes to hunting and fishing. Always have been. I think I caught my first fish when I was 2. Shot my first deer when I was 12. It's been my life for the last, well, my whole life.
Yeah,
Um,
part of your identity
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, it's my jam.
That's awesome, man. What you mentioned just the brief stint at CPW. What all did you do for them when you worked for them?
Yeah, so I was a fisheries technician. So I just did all the grunt work for the fisheries biologist, all the survey, so all the electrofishing data, all the netting data, salmon spawning, lake trout removal, uh, just yeah, all the grunt work,
Gotcha.
gathering the data so that he could make the management decisions.
Awesome, man. And working right now, and I know you and I chatted a little bit kind of before the episode went online and all that kind of stuff, but um, full time in hunting and fishing right now, which for a lot of
Yep.
people probably a coveted occupation. I don't know if you might say otherwise in different aspects of life, but I know for a lot of people outside looking in, they'd be like, "Oh man, to be able to hunt and fish and do all that full time for a living, that's the dream right there."
It was a dream. We had a bit of a slow year last year because of some just economics and actually, so Gunnison's kind of isolated in that we've got a mountain pass to the east and a bridge to the west, and if either one of those go out, we have a bit of a problem. And the bridge to the west went out, so
Mm,
um, unfortunately, I have to probably work on finding something else, and I'm kind of partway through that process. But I plan to guide a lot as much as I can, still. So yeah, it's great. I love it.
that's awesome, man. Well, I definitely we're definitely going to talk some hunting and just dive in and chat it up with all that kind of stuff here in a little bit. But I wanted to get to kind of the meat of our conversation. We'll kind of start diving right in, and I'll preface it for our listeners from the standpoint of um, again the TikTok comment and everything. You commented on actually one of our reels from, I think it was our episode 225, where I had one of our own guys on the team that lives in Colorado as well, who typically comes online and shares some stuff about the Colorado draw applications and big game tags and everything whenever Colorado drops their new regs every year in the spring. Um, and of course, Colorado being in the spotlight here recently with wolves and lions and propositions 114 and 127 and all these different things. A lot of different opinions and thoughts and feelings about all those things floating around for sure. And that's kind of what led to our interaction was you had some feedback for us on that reel in particular and everything, and that led to a discussion, and that discussion led to this. So I guess I'll start it off just by as a Colorado resident, as somebody who is passionate about fishing and hunting wildlife in the state of Colorado, um, what's up with wolves, man? What are your thoughts on the wolf reintroduction initially?
Oh man, it's a bit of a dumpster fire around here. So as of 2020, with Prop 114 passed, um, basically, according to the legislation, it gave them 3 years to get wolves on the ground, which they did at the end of 2023. And so I live in Gunnison, which is for Prop 114, according to their plan, one of the two areas in Colorado they could basically release wolves. This Ours is the southern zone, and then there's the northern zone, which is where currently all the wolves have been released. So up until then, like they didn't tell us where they were going to start. So everybody around me, all my hunting buddies, we were all a little nervous because Gunnison was on the list of places that they could drop wolves. And so there wasn't a whole lot I could do. I just paid attention through that whole process. And again, that's why I'm here, is because I'm a concerned citizen. I don't like wolves on the ground. I don't hate wolves, but I don't think in this time and place, Colorado is the place for them. I mean, we've got 6 million residents, or almost 6 million residents. Um, I understand the idea behind why people want them, and I'm all for returning native species to native habitat. Something I did at CPW. We did reclamation projects where we would wipe out miles of creek with rotenone, a fish toxin, clear out all the brook trout, and then a year later come back and restock it with native cutthroat trout. Like as a biologist, I have the degree in wildlife biology. I fully believe in restoring native species to native habitat. This is I don't think these are native because they're from Canadian lineage, um, but also just the social and political aspects of it. I don't, I mean, it's hard to say, but I just disagree with it. And then how they implemented it has been a circus from the start. The the governor kept pushing. Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth. The governor kept pushing to get them on the ground as quick as possible, which didn't give the CPW enough time to really, in my opinion, get their ducks in a row, um, informing ranchers, coming up with you know better management plans in the event of depredations, coming up with plans to implement the non-lethal measures, um, finding wolves, because Montana and Wyoming right out of the gate were like, we're not giving them to you. So that was a
Yeah.
pain trying to for the state just to find them. Um, it's just been a circus the whole way through. And even within the last week, with the new batch of wolves that they dumped back in January, we've already got our first round of depredations in Pitkin County where they put them. Um, and this is from a batch of wolves from north central British Columbia that they claim had no interaction with livestock. And so they thought the chances of them depredating on livestock was a lot lower. Um, One wolf made it all the way to north central Wyoming and got shot by APHIS, the government, because it killed 5 sheep up there.
Yeah.
Like
I saw that the other
it's
day. I was like, holy cow, man. That's
it's
crazy.
been a it's been a circus. And then just because the CPW basically has a gag order on their opinions and their what they're allowed to say, it's been very limited information that any of the ranchers, any of the outfitters get as to where wolves are, when they're putting them where. And so the public trust, I feel, between especially ranchers and the CPW got eroded like hardcore by this whole process. Um,
Yeah.
where it goes from here, we just have to see. But yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a dumpster fire.
Yeah, absolutely. It granted, again, as our listeners good and well know, I'm from Texas, and I've preached on this podcast before about the importance of people from not just in Colorado paying attention to stuff like this happening, because this is Colorado is kind of the battlefield right now, but there's issues in and of themselves in states all across the country and everything, and issues similar to what Colorado's facing can travel to other states. So it's important for people to pay attention. And in saying that, I have been paying more attention. It really wasn't until Proposition 114 and then wolves started hitting the ground on and just being transparent that that's when I kind of woke up myself and started paying more
Yep.
attention to what was going on. And even from my perspective, it seems so superficial. Just like, I mean, one, it's a ballot initiative to make it happen in the first place, and then it's just it 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 just lacks so much transparency in my opinion. Again, outside looking in and everything, and I know that there's organizations, there's folks that are trying to use their various capacities to make stuff happen. And I know you had mentioned you went and listened to a podcast we had with John Stallone from Howl for Wildlife on here not that long ago, where he talked about trying to flip the ballot box and use it against them, to basically halt the 114 wolf reintroduction in 2026. Not
Yep.
necessarily getting rid of all the wolves, just stop bringing them here. And so I wanted to talk to you about that too. And I know on your own pages and everything, you've had shared some thoughts with your own following over that matter and everything. But I want to talk to you on here about your thoughts on an initiative like that, using the ballot box again to try and start the process in correcting something that has been an issue.
Yeah. So I think, and then again, this is the crux of our initial, um, the message I sent
Yeah.
you guys after seeing that video. So it's a really tricky issue. Um, it is using ballot box biology to, kind of reverse the process. But what this new measure would do, the two big things are it would end wolf reintroduction on December 31st of 2026. Um, and so that's whatever, a year and 9 months from now or
Yeah.
something.
Just shy of 2 years.
So, right. And so the the big issue personally I have with it, and I think a lot of people have with it, is it's too little too late. I then That gives the CPW, which they're mandated to do, they're going to put more wolves on the ground. Um, the winter of 25, 26, feasibly, they can easily get another 15 to 20 wolves. They got 15 wolves in 6 days from British Columbia this year. They have a whole winter coming up this next winter to get more animals, which British Columbia has already agreed to give them. Plus all the way till the end of December of 2026 to get more if they want. So by that time, we're already going to be at that 30 to 50 that Prop 114 has essentially mandated. And um, it only ends their introduction. So hypothetically, if down the road, once they have, let's just say they have 40 wolves at the end of 2026, this goes into effect. If they can't get a stable population post that per what 114 is mandating to establish a viable, self-sustaining population, then the state can't go anywhere else to get more wolves. What that achieves is negligible, in my opinion. And um, the one thing that I really do like about the new ballot measure or potential ballot measure is that it would change the definition of gray wolf from a non-game species. It removes non-game from the species definition. Does that mean we're going to be hunting wolves anytime soon? Absolutely not. There's no way. There's a good chance we're not even going to have a wolf hunting season within my lifetime. Between achieving whatever the population goal is and litigation from anti-hunting NGOs, it's going to be a fiasco.
Yeah.
But it does open up a slight window for management in that respect. And it also, the new ballot measure would add working dogs to it, to the to depredation claims. So if a working dog, a cattle guard dog, a herding dog got killed, which I believe they already are, So I'm not sure why that is in there. Um, in the grand scheme of things, it's too little, too late, and it doesn't change enough to matter, especially given that the time and effort and money that would be required to even get this on the ballot still at this point, between signatures and funding and all that, could be better used for a potential right to hunt and fish, or establishing statutory definitions of hunting, or any number of other options that would benefit hunters and anglers and trappers down the road more so than this very limited and um just I don't want to say short-sighted because that's not the right word, but limited
It it
ballot measure.
it feels like, I mean, you mentioned it, too little, too late, and it feels like it's not gonna do much in the
Yeah,
grand scheme of things.
yeah, it won't shift the needle that much. And as of today, I can't find a single outfitter organization, cattlemen's association, Coloradoans for Responsible Wildlife Management, the guys that ran the campaign against Prop 127, nobody's endorsed this. So the bulk of the stakeholder organizations aren't aren't endorsing this um, initiative for, I think, the reasons I said. It's not enough. It's too late. There's better ways to do this than what they've got.
Yeah. So I guess, and this is again kind of going back to the focus of our original discussion on TikTok, but with this opinion and everything, and your perspective on this as a Colorado resident, which I think is very, very, very thorough and appropriate. The What in your mind are some alternatives? What, I mean, you mentioned, briefly a couple of other things the money could be spent on, for example. I know, you've mentioned how something like this, even a ballot measure like this, should be accompanied, if at all possible, with some sort of management plan. Um,
Yep.
and then, but if it's too little, too late, coming on a ballot in November of 26, then is there anything in your mind that you could see as being low hanging fruit that could be hit sooner than that in Colorado?
And that's a tough question.
I didn't really prep you for
Given
that
the
one. Sorry.
No, you're good. Uh, given the political climate, that's really hard to answer. Colorado's such a dichotomy, and we've got very rural, very hunting oriented, ranching oriented, areas of the state, the western slope, the eastern plains, and then you've got this big divide right down the middle, front range, urban, very liberal leaning. Um, but that's where that vote is decided. Now, the fact that 127 was defeated by almost 10% gives us a lot of hope. Um, I think the lowest hanging fruit would be a right to hunt and fish, constitutional right to hunt and fish. It would be really hard to get that passed. Some other options that I've heard bounced around is, because of the potential statutory definition that Prop 127 would have put on, or on trophy hunting. Basically, what they had was your bog standard definition of hunting. If you'd put any species in that definition that they had, it's just hunting. Trying to kill or harm something with a firearm or other weapon is just hunting. That's it. Sorry to, but that's it.
Yeah.
So there's a thought that if you establish a different definition for trophy hunting, then they can't use that language again in the future without breaking the statutory definition. I don't think that's the right way to go, but um, it's a it's an intriguing thought, especially just in the mind games that uh, both sides play in terms of rallying people to their cause with, oh, trophy hunting's terrible, and it's like, nobody trophy hunts in Colorado. You have to take the meat, you have to process it for human consumption. Yes, the desire may be to shoot the biggest bull or the biggest buck, but they can't leave the meat on the hill. They can't,
Yeah.
even lions, you have to take the meat, you have to process it for human consumption. Yes, you get a trophy out of it, but everybody's going to eat that meat. So, um, yeah, as for the best option other than this, I think it's it's tough to say. As for this initiative, I think they could have put in some management plans. As it is, they would leave management to the commission, which sounds great in theory, except, I mean, again, this is my political stance on it. Our commission has been rather corrupted, isn't quite the right word, but it's been heavy handed by the governor because they're all governor appointees.
Right.
Um, I would say away from the consumptive use hunting angling side. Um, and that's just how it's going to be in Colorado. So leaving it up to the commission, I don't think benefits hunters, anglers, and ranchers. So I mean, they could have put in a, things like a population cap. I think Prop 114 was aiming for 200 wolves. Cool. At 200 wolves, you start management. Like that's an easy benchmark. I feel like that's a comfortable benchmark. And if it's mandated by legislation, then you would circumnavigate all the lawsuits, potential lawsuits from these pro wolf NGOs that are like, well, no, then you're not you don't have a solid population or whatever. But if it's statutorily mandated, then there's nothing they can do. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it. But it's a tricky issue, man, and
Yeah.
it's just going to take a lot more brain power.
It's something for sure. Just again, with everything, with so much going through just legislation and everything here lately, it's such a different fight that hunters and conservationists they haven't really had to go to this level before. And I know that was one thing that um, we did a podcast before the Proposition 127 vote with Dan Gates from CRWM, and he talked about just the amount of effort and money and everything that was being spent on the hunting side, and how much work it took to generate all of that, right? And
Yep,
the opposition, the other side, it's just like it almost feels like they got bottomless pocketbooks when it comes
they
to some of
absolutely
this
do.
stuff. And it's just it's so lopsided, and we have to work so hard for something like this.
We have an uphill fight every single time. And Colorado, as far as it goes on a national level, is right now, like I would say, the center of attention. We're dealing with 114. We just survived 127. We've had in the last like 3 months, we've had another, I don't know if it's an initiative or a House bill or
The
something,
House
but
bill, yeah.
yeah, so it potentially, well, there's the House bill that would have changed the CPW's mandate from shall use hunting and fishing and trapping as a management tool to may, which means they don't have to use it. They could have used whatever other method as their management. Um, we've got SB3 going through right now. It's probably going to end on the governor's desk here and shortly. That uses CPW to create it's not quite a registry, but it would be a permitting system for Colorado to basically buy back our Second Amendment rights to own semi-automatic mag-fed firearms. And it uses CPW cash fund money, and then it's this it's a whole thing that slushes money around to avoid tax refunds and uses CPW money, which should be going to you know fish and wildlife and public lands to create a system for us to buy back our constitutional rights. So Colorado is it's a wild west of wildlife management legislation right now.
Yeah. I had this thought pop in my head I was going to ask you, and you mentioned that House bill that was was voted down or defeated, I believe, where it was the
Yeah, I think
language
it didn't
change.
make it out of committee. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was a language change, and I would have to look it up to remember the exact wording or what it was specifically proposing, but basically it would lay the ground for them to make it a whole lot easier to get rid of hunting
Yep.
in the grand scheme of things. So a big win for hunters with that, being squashed, but with I don't know. The question I was going to ask you, just for your opinion, is seeing that. Do you think that is something positive that could open a door for a right to hunt and fish? Seeing that something like that get taken off the table.
Yeah, the fact that it died so fast in committee is, in fact, that's a good thing, obviously. Um, yeah, I that's a really good point. I didn't think of that it does potentially lead to a right to hunt and fish. The right to hunt and fish would not come from the legislature. It would probably have to be a statewide ballot initiative like 114 or 127. Um, but man, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does definitely open the door in that Coloradans could potentially support that given that that died so quickly.
I would hope that just given the history, like regardless of which side of the fence you're on with the wolf thing, like even if you are if you voted in favor of 114 and you were just someone who was naive and uneducated on the matter, right? I would hope that enough of a stir has followed in the years that came after that people might start kind of thinking about it or looking back on and trying to educate themselves more. Then we have 127 and conservation organizations that were, like we just mentioned, throwing lots of money at promotion and education and all this other kind of stuff for these situations. And then this House bill and all these other things still yet to come. I hope that everything like that. I feel like if there's a time for Colorado, it's now. I feel like the time for Colorado is now for the people who can have an influence to take advantage of that. I guess that's what I'm saying.
I absolutely agree. In the wake of winning on 127, I think now's the time to come out swinging. We gotta strike while the iron's hot. It's fresh in everybody's minds. If there's ever a time to do it, it's now. We have to be very, very specific with our wording and very clean with our messaging, but I don't see it as unfeasible.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, man. 100% for sure. I got some other talking points and everything that I want to hit with you on various topics and everything. But before we just completely move on from wolves and lions, do you have any other insight or perspective that you'd like to share just from being a Colorado resident, being a guide, an avid hunter and fisherman there in Colorado? Um, Anything else that you'd like to share before we move on the subject?
Yeah, I just think um, hunters and anglers are kind of we keep to ourselves. Now's not the time. If you're gonna advocate for your hunting and fishing rights, this is the time to do it,
Yeah,
especially in Colorado. It's never been under more threat, and there's never been a better time to make your voices heard. I mean, tell your story, explain why you do it. That's the only way we're going to get through this with a hunting and fishing and trapping win. So, um, now as far as that goes, that's kind of my 2 cents on the whole thing. I could talk about it forever, but yeah,
oh yeah. No, it's something that I mean for sure close to home for you, quite literally, and yeah, something we're all passionate about, but resonates a little bit heavier with you for sure. So
yeah, it's definitely a threat to my way of life and what
yeah,
I've loved and done for the last 32 years on this planet. So I'm going to keep fighting the good fight and spreading what knowledge I can. So,
yeah, absolutely, man. Got another topic that I wanted to ask you about, or that I think actually you kind of mentioned it to me beforehand, or in one of our messages about something that you might like to discuss while you're on here. And again, being a Colorado resident and hunter, and that was just Colorado's just hunting tags, the licenses changes over times, and in particular with the over the counter options and some changes that have happened there. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. I've heard a little bit of stuff here and there from our own guy and some other folks that we know that hunt over there, but um, you're you're clearly very educated on and in tune with what's going on in your state. So tell me about what's up with these OTC tags.
yeah, so there was a new season structure change that, uh, or management strategy and all that came into effect starting this year. Um, for the bulk of the people, and especially residents, it wasn't the biggest deal. It did change. Actually, I think it was for last year. It changed um, Allocations. So previously for most Colorado units, it was 65-35 in favor of residents. Now it's 75-25 in most units, other than the high value ones that are 80-20 in favor of residents. Um, but it also for this year it ended um, OTC archery tags for non-residents, which was a for at least the state, it was a massive money bag. Everybody and their mom would come up, buy an OTC archery tag. They had a boatload of units to hunt, whether they spent a week or a month of the season. Um, it kind of flooded those units with a lot of non-resident hunters. And the big issue supposedly was hunter crowding. Um, I hunt around where I guide. There's hunters everywhere. Like that's not a problem to me. So I don't think that was a huge issue. I think it was just a lot of Colorado residents didn't like running into a bunch of guys from, sorry, Texas or Oklahoma or whatever up in their favorite basin. Um, but in my opinion, I think the whole state should have gone draw for everything. No OTC tags anywhere. Rifle archery included, resident, non-resident, just get rid of OTC as a whole. It's great opportunity for people, but it is terrible management, in my opinion. Um, you you know how many OTC tags are sold, but because it's an OTC tag, it's good for a pile of units, whether it's rifle or archery or whatever. So you don't know where those people are going. You don't know where the bulk of that hunting pressure is. And in most OTC units, the bull cow ratios that the CPW has set is the bull ratio is below the objective, um, which means that, yeah, they're high opportunity units, but it's very hard to find a quality bull. And especially if you do, somebody else knows about it and you're competing with them. Where I guide here in Gunnison for elk, it's currently a OTC second and third rifle season. So finding a quality bull is tough. There's some very nice ones around. Um, but most of them don't make it through that second or third rifle season. Um, so, a lot of clients, I'll tell them if it's legal, I would highly recommend taking that shot because you don't know what your opportunity is like. If we find a big guy, you bet we're going to hunt him. But that first 4 points on one side that steps out, you should think real hard about pulling that trigger. And that kind of sucks. I'd like to be able to tell clients, like, I should wait. There's a chance we find something nicer.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah,
Well,
as far as OTC goes, in my opinion, get rid of it all. It's bad management. Just increase the tag allocations for those units by a little bit. And that's part of the reason we have such terrible point creep in Colorado. There's units that take 20 points to draw for elk because everybody's been hunting OTC units for the last 30 years and building points. I have 14 points and I've hunted elk the last 5 years because I
because
could
of an
get an
OTC
OTC tag
yeah.
and I could drive 50 yards across the road and hunt. Like,
Yeah. That's the hard part is you're looking at like, man, this is a bad system, but at the same time it's it's the best system for you yourself to have a chance, and it's
right.
that's a tough balance for sure. And then you, like, from the guide standpoint, you talked about that and referenced that. It's like, man, I want to have giants walking around everywhere and be hunting giants, but I also want my client to be successful and to have a good
Yeah.
trip. And you can't grow giants if you shoot the small ones, and you can't sometimes have a opportunity to fill your tag if you don't shoot a smaller one either. It's so difficult.
Yeah. And honestly, like we've had very high success on decent animals. My muzzleloader hunter 4 years ago killed a 339 bull.
Oh
Like
wow.
we and we've got guys up there that are constantly looking, constantly, keeping tabs on what bulls are where. So we have a pretty good idea of what's around. That thing stepped out of the spruce at 44 yards, and I just about crapped myself because I was like, that's the biggest elk I've ever seen in this unit. And, oh my God, don't miss. He made a good shot. We found it the next morning. But yeah, it's kind of like And up until that bull stepped out, we had been bugling with a small 4x4 at 80 yards. And I'm like, that's a legal bull. You should shoot him.
Yeah.
And my guy was like, no, I've already killed an elk. I'm going to hold out. And it was the right call because the giant stepped out 2 minutes later.
Oh, good for
But
him, man.
I couldn't guarantee that. And yeah, I would like to see some more quality animals. Um, and I think OTC definitely is detrimental to that.
Well, I'm certainly curious to see how things are gonna play out because I've been keeping an eye on just some of the current trends and everything with tags and stuff, and then I know at least what I've been told by some stuff I've read, and then our own guy up there is that 2028 is gonna be a big year up there with some potential changes coming down the pipe. So gonna be interesting to see what happens between now and then.
Yeah, that one that I have no idea how that's going to play out. It's such a weird system they're putting in. Um, couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you should burn all your points now or start saving.
Yeah, I don't know. They I know Tim, our guy, he was talking about how he thinks that like 2026, 27 will be the years to cash in cuz it's going to some stuff might be challenging after that. I don't know if you have your own opinion on that either, but curious if you
Yeah,
do.
I don't know that they're the years to cash in, but I think they're the years that are going to be cashed in.
Yeah.
Because everybody sees this change coming down the pipe. Um, the way the new system, if I've understood it correctly, which um it would still so half the tags go to points, half are just a random lottery. So if basically if you look at draw statistics now, if you take the bottom half of those points out, like point draws out, those would just end up being the random, and it's that top half
Mm.
that's gonna still draw. So I mean, if you're still above what the point requirements are, well, and it's weird. It's going to be like one. I think it's going to be 1 year where that top half of what was the previous year's draw odds. So if it's a 5 point unit and you've got 10 points, you're guaranteed. And then it's going to shift that balance because you've got half as many people with or half as many tags going to points. It's going to be so weird. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to play out in terms of draw odds and whatnot. Um, I'm going to probably use my points the next couple of years. I'm well above points requirements for the unit that I want to hunt. So it doesn't really matter to me. And I would so much rather go back to being able to draw a decent tag and the other half of the valley here that is limited draw, not OTC tags, um, and hunt decent animals every other year, every 2 years. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. Everybody should be paying attention, at least I think.
Yeah.
But if you have any interesting hunt in Colorado, that is. Well,
Yeah.
man, I want to just talk some hunting and everything with you too, because you have from my understanding, you have a lot of awesome experiences as a guide and everything. And we were chatting before we started recording even about how you start your year chasing elk and go all the way into hunting mule deer in the snow and everything. So, wh-
Yep.
I guess I'll just start off and break the ice with what's it like being a guide in Colorado?
Oh, dude. So who I guide for, the company's called AEI, Adventure Experiences. Look up AEI Outfitter. Uh, we're a phenomenal outfit. We're my boss is great. He's super supportive. All the other guides, like I've worked at an outfit that they were great, but and I've heard a lot of horror stories about other outfits where guides are like, "Oh, I found a bull, but I'm not going to tell you where he is," or "Yeah, I know where Smelk are. I'm that. Those are for my clients." There is none of that. Like we all come back in the night before the hunt after we've gone out scouting. We go, "Okay, there's a bull here. There's a bull here." Bull here. You go after this one. I'm going after this one. We match our clients based on who has the best available or physical ability. Like if you've got a 65-year-old guy from Iowa, you're probably not going for that bull, but that one's an easier hunt. So as far as my coworkers, my fellow guides, they're all phenomenal. it's not super hard to guide in Colorado. I have my own outfitting license and stuff, where I did until recently. But it's just experience that helps, and you only get that by doing it. My first couple years, I was kind of just like, walking through the woods, let's go find some elk. And the last 2 years, uh, it was a different game. Like I was like, all right, I know what I'm about, I know what I'm doing, and I had almost 100% shot opportunity for every single one of my clients. Um,
That's awesome.
Opening day, we were 8.5 minutes into legal shooting light opening day last year, and my client missed twice on
Oh
a
my
big
word.
5x5. Yep, yeah, it was ridiculous. We got up on this hill and I looked across and there's a bull. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we kind of snuck into some trees. I set my guy up and I was like, all right, he's going to probably try and work this way. So keep an eye out. I'm going to go up here and let out one cow call. And the bull just started coming straight at me. I was like, oh, I figured he'd, at least try and work around us. No, that bull just beelined right at me. I got shot right over his back. And I was like, oh no. Bull turned. I called again. He stopped broadside at 50 yards and buried it in the rock right between his legs. Bull ran off over the hill.
Oh man, never a dull moment. Golly.
Yeah. And then he missed again 2 days later. So, but he was great. I would have him as a client again any day. Physically fit. He could shoot mostly. So it's
After
it's
that,
fun.
after you got the nervousness out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think it was just a rangefinder issue. He ranged it just a little short, and it is what it is. Um, yeah, it's as much fun as you can have without holding the gun or the bow yourself.
Yeah. No, I've uh, never guided professionally or done anything like that. I've, hosted just hunting trips and stuff, on a smaller scale and, more intimate scale and everything. And I've enjoyed it whenever you get to just be a part of somebody else's experience and everything. And then, especially in your sense, man, I can only imagine it makes you yourself such a better hunter. You're just doing it over
Oh,
and over and over again. It's
yeah. By the end of archery season, I guided either the full month or the first 3 weeks, but by the end, you're kind of crashed. By the end, you're just physically beat. A month of archery hunting is brutal, especially
yeah.
at 10,000 feet. So by the time that last client shows up, you're kind of just like, oh, I really need a dumb bull. But
Let's make
yeah,
it quick.
absolutely. Yeah, you're kind of like, oh, please just, if you're bugling with something, you're like, oh, just step out. Come on, I can go to bed at
Yeah.
a reasonable hour. Um, but also you're just like, you hear that bugle and you're like, oh, yeah. It's so much fun. And then yeah, you're right. It does give you, I don't know, I don't want to it gives you a level of skill that others don't have when you have to be sneaky for two people, and one of those guys is Flatlander that's back there, trying to not die of altitude sickness
That's me.
and
I'm
keep
that
up.
guy.
you know, he's back there going, and you're like, come on, we gotta go. These elk are moving, and or just like sneaking. I'm like walking ahead of them, and then all of a sudden that stick behind you, like take two more steps, crack.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how this is gonna go. So it's so much fun. Um, but yeah, it definitely gives you a skill set that is hard to find elsewhere, especially, because like if it was, I don't know, if it was my brother or my dad behind me, I could turn around and be like, bro, what are you doing? With a client, you're kind of like, it's okay, keep going. We sound like elk. So
We
I don't know.
sound
It's
like elk.
you're you're trying to do everything to, because like that stick snaps and you turn to look at them and they're like, sorry. I'm like, it's okay, you sound like an elk. But it's so much fun. It's just so much fun.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I always have that. I've always looked at guides from that perspective. I mean, I'm sure that there's folks out there, and I've met one or two here and there that have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, a little bit about it. But I mean,
Yeah.
in reality, man, I mean, you have tenfold the experience of other guys trying to do do what you're doing. Like I that was put into perspective for me, just again being a Texas guy and starting to hunt out west for the past 7 or 8 years or so. It's like, man, I have only spent not even 2 weeks, for example, hunting pronghorn in my life. I have only spent a week hunting mule deer, and that wasn't even in traditional mule deer country. That was in flatland eastern Colorado. And then I've only spent a week in elk country this last year, and it's like, but when I was in it, I was just such a sponge. And comparing that to my whitetail hunting down here, it's just like, man, it's just such a narrow window for me to learn all this stuff. I feel like I'm a
Yeah,
brand new hunter again, and that window for you is wide open. You're in it the whole time, which is awesome.
right. Like in the last 4 years, I've guided 4.5 months of archery season, which is more than most guys get in 5, 6, 7 years if they're drawing a tag every
Oh
year
yeah,
or every other year. Um, so yeah, it's an immense amount of experience. Um, I would say that because I'm guiding in one area, like there's other places in Colorado I could go and not have a ding dang darn clue what I'm doing. But
yeah,
for my area, yeah, me and my other guides, yeah, we're the best. We
yeah,
we know down to the foot where we need to be at daylight to have a good chance. And that's just, yeah. And I think that's very evident to our clients. We get a lot of them. They're like, you know, they're puffing up a hill at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning in dark timber going, what are we doing? And then you hit that tree line right at first light and there's elk screaming and they're like, all right, cool, game on.
yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. So how much with as much hunting or excuse me, guiding as you do, how much hunting do you get to do yourself?
Uh More than you'd think, but not as much as I want.
Yeah.
Um, I don't hunt archery myself. I'm a rifle guy. Uh, the last year I got was 2 years ago, and then I got uh, that guy 3 years ago. Um, and I got a over the counter bull tag the last couple years or last few years. And I only hunted a couple of days because I was guiding the first part of that season. Um, I plan with this potential new job that I'm working on and stuff. I hope to still guide. I'm not going to be able to do as much. Um, but I also have the opportunity to hunt a little bit more for myself. I actually applied for a bear tag yesterday for the first time ever
Nice.
in Colorado. Um, Not that I've seen a lot of bears around, but there's more than there has been. And it's a month-long season. So even if I'm working, I still have, a few days a week to get out, or even just an afternoon. I could literally throw the rifle over my shoulder, throw some orange on, and go fly fishing. And if a bear happens to walk out while I'm going up the creek, cool. Um, and then I applied for my first ever antelope tag as well. I got 20 points. I've been saving antelope points since I started applying when I was 12. So I should draw that tag, and that's just for right here in my home unit. Um,
Nice.
so that'll be cool. I hope to have a little bit of time to do those hunts. And if I get lucky, a moose tag. But no, I don't have any deer or elk plans on the docket anytime soon. So
Gotcha. How hard is it to draw a moose tag as a resident up there?
um, that's a kind of hard to answer question because I know guys that have got 20 moose points and have never drawn. And
See,
I
that
know a
that's what
guy
I've
that,
always heard is you can have bukus of points and never get one. So yeah. Wow.
yeah, because it's kind of a lot system, not a high point wins like elk and deer. It generates certain numbers and puts your name in the hat and stuff. I know a guy that drew a moose tag with 3 points, and I've got guys that have 20 points and have never drawn. So kind of dumb luck.
Yeah, that's just I've had to educate myself as best I can and learn as much as I can about the point system as I put in for at least put in for points in Colorado every year, and yeah, my Tim, our guy up there, he kept hounding me to for like 4 years to come up there and mule deer hunt at his family farm on the Eastern Plains, which is flat, flat, flat out there, as you know. And that was for me. That was just like, man, I gotta do it. I gotta do it with a bow. That's what I kept telling him because I'm archery only. I don't hunt big
Yep.
game with a rifle. And he was like, well, you're dumb, but come on. And I was I was able to pull that tag with no points, basically because of how dumb I was. So
Yeah,
yeah, that and I have I lucked out, but I put in the work for it too. I have a mule deer on the wall as a result, so
that's awesome.
I got to crawl through a CRP field for an hour and a half and got into 28 yards on a buck and let it
Oh,
let it
that's
let it
awesome.
fly. So it was pretty cool.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that buck there, I actually hunted with hang on, camera, that rifle, which
Gotcha.
is it's from World War One. It's a
Oh
Lee
wow.
Enfield from uh British service rifle from World War One. It's the same year and factory is the one my grandfather on my mom's side, who's down in New Zealand, that he was issued by the New Zealand government to cull red stag back in the late 1940s. So I found a rifle that was the same year, same factory, and hunted a mule deer with it, and I shot that buck at 40 yards in
Wow.
sagebrush and open ponderosa. So it was super cool.
That's awesome, man. What a cool deal. Wow. That's pretty neat. Yeah, it was I felt like I was in one of the, old monster buck videos I grew up watching or something like that back in the day, because I was just that buck was bedded in the middle of this field, and as a Texas boy, driving down a dirt road looking at this field, I would have never thought there were deer bedded in it, but you
Right.
actually get in it and crawl around, it's like there's tons of places for them to hide in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I stood up at like, it was like 37, 38 yards. I stood up at full draw and was grunting at him, practically yelling at him to try and get him to stand. And he didn't stand up. He wouldn't stand up. So I got back down, kind of looking around. I'm like, man, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, I guess I'll just get closer. So I just kept crawling.
Why not?
And I shaved 10 more yards off, got into 28, and did it all again. I was like, I saw this on a monster buck one day. The dude stood up at full draw and grunted, and the deer stood up and he shot it. And that's exactly what I did.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, it could have been more perfect, man. Like he stood up and that pin was just as soon as he stood up into the pin and it was right where it needed to be. And the guys
Perfectly
were
lined.
the guys were watching me from way way far away, back there in the pickup, and they said that they thought that he just got up and ran away. They said it was so, from their perspective, they said it was so fast in the binos and the
Yeah.
glass, it just looked like he stood up and took off. And to me, it felt like a million minutes were going by.
When you're in that last 3 seconds, it's like 1,000 years. You could feel the trigger pull. Everything is just so slow.
Oh yeah,
So cool.
it's fun, man. Yeah, I'm a Texas boy with the bug for sure. I'm trying. I don't know what's going to be on the list for this year, but I'm trying to do something different every year. So
Did you
I've
already put in for tags?
No, I don't, like I said, I don't know where I'm going this year. I might actually be doing like Midwest this year. I'm
Okay.
not sure yet, but I might not be going out west. Might be changing up a little bit, but I have all these places I want to go and things I want to hunt and everything. It's like, well, at some point you got to actually start doing it. So, yeah, I've crossed a pronghorn and a mule deer off the list with my bow, and didn't quite get the elk done this year, but that'll come in
Well,
some
I know
time.
where a few elk are at, so
Yeah, I might have to hit you up. It sounds like might be some early mornings, but some good success. So
yeah. Heck yeah, man.
awesome, man. I got a couple questions for you that we ask all of our first time guests on the show before we wrap it up. If you're ready for it, the first one just
Oh yeah.
being, and I'm excited for this one because I can only imagine you got a ton of them. But what is one of your favorite hunting memories that you've had so far in your life?
Oh man, it's got to be the last elk that my dad got. Again, this is just like how much I love guiding. It was during the same hunt. He happened to have a cow tag. I had a buck tag. And we had a bunch of other friends, but so we set up this big camp, and it was probably day three. Actually, it was the afternoon of day two. So my dad and I were talking with the other guys at camp, whatever. Like, all right, we're gonna go down and glass this center pivot. We know there's some bucks hanging out on it, and it's always a spot where elk kind of come off this hill and go down to. So we're gonna go check out the center pivot for the evening. Um, I wasn't really like, unless the opportunity presented itself, I wasn't gonna be like super hardcore because we had another 5, 6, 7 days of the hunt. And so we go down, we glass, come back to camp, and we're all sitting around having dinner. And our buddy Devin is trying to find his phone. And well, on our way out to go glass this center pivot, um, there were three domestic sheep just walking down the road. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, and my dad films them just to, I don't know why. It's like three domestic sheep. Like they're not super rare, but it was just kind of weird. So my dad films them as we drive by. We go down glass center, come back. Well, he's showing this video to the other guys in camp that night, and he hands it to me just to look at it. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. There is something sitting on the hood of my truck. And I was like, oh, Devin, I think I know where your phone is. It was his phone that had a magnetic charger. He left it sitting on the hood of my truck. And so I showed it to him. He was like, oh man. I'm like, dude, I bet it's just down at the glassing spot. Like, we'll go look for it in the morning. So they all hit the bottle a little bit that night. And I get them all up in the morning. Devin and the other guys go off one way, and my dad and I go back down to the center pivot to look for the phone and see what's there. Well, we pull up to that glassing spot, and I get out and I'm looking for the phone. My dad's sitting in the truck, drinking his coffee, trying to get over the night before. And I look up the road, and there's like 200 elk just hauling across the road right off the center pivot. All right, vault back in the truck, and I'm like, elk, drive. And he, to his credit, hungover credit, punches it. As I dive in the back seat, I'm like digging his rifle out, digging ammo out. He pulls up on the road right below these elk that are now working up the hillside. And I shove the gun and ammo at him, shove him out the door. I'm like, go. He starts working up the hill, and I heard two shots, and I know he missed because I saw the first one. And I drove down, turned the truck around, came back, and helped him look. He's like, no, I think I missed. He did the due diligence, made sure he didn't hit anything. And I was like, all right, cool. Bummer, but that was kind of cool. So we're like, well, let's just drive down and around and see if those elk came around. And so we go down, we talk to this guy who just shot a buck that I was actually looking at as I was turning the truck around. So I was like, oh man, that sucks. Anyway, we talked to him for like 10 minutes. Like, we're not overly concerned about trying to find these elk again, but whatever. So we talked to him, and then we keep going around the road, kind of get up this hill, and we crest out, and they're 500 yards away is the herd of elk just spread out on this hillside. I'm like, no way. All right, cool. Get your gun. So we leave the truck in the middle of this 2-track, jump out, and there's no cover. I mean, not a knee-high bush for 500 yards. There's one stump. And my dad's like, what's the plan? Like, I can't shoot that far. Like, all right, walk behind me, bent over. And so it was like two dudes, and one's bent over, and we looked mildly like an elk. And we just walked straight at him. 200 yards, just walked straight at him. We got to 318 yards. I'm like, all right, this is kind of the end of the line. You're going to have to take the shot.
Yeah.
And then it came down to figuring out which one was which, because I could see through my glass that there was one big bull and a handful of spikes. And through his scope, he couldn't quite pick out which one was a cow versus a spike. I'm like, well, just don't shoot one if you don't know, because that's bad. And so I was looking around, and I finally found this cow, and she had just a vibrant white butt. Like, all the others had that kind of, beige tan. Hers was snow white. I'm like, shoot the one with the white butt. Oh, hit her, dropped her. Cool. It was just a like comedy of errors from start to finish. Like, if he hadn't set his phone on the hood, if we hadn't filmed the sheep, if we hadn't gone to look for the phone, we
None of
laugh
it would
about
have
that story.
happened.
Yeah, like none of that would have happened. And so we get back to camp at 10 o'clock that morning with a cow elk in the back. And Devin, the guy whose phone is now lost, was so mad. He's like, dude, you guys went looking for my phone and came back with an elk because he's the only other dude in camp with a cow tag. Sorry, man. That's just how it happened. The elk were there. We made the most of it.
Yeah, sorry about your bad luck.
Sorry about your phone, but we got an elk. So
That's awesome, man. Man, good times. Yeah, I love listening to folks' stories on here and everything, and it's cool how the majority of them don't even involve the guest or the storyteller even shooting anything. It's always an experience with somebody else, and that's that's why we do it. That's the
And
that's a big part of it.
I got my buck 4 days later. It was a great hunt.
That's
We had a
awesome.
young kid in camp that killed his first doe, so it was sweet. It was such a great week, and I've tried to get that same group back together the last couple of years, and you know, it as life happens, some can, some can't, but I don't know. It's just a fun camp. And last year I didn't even have a tag, and we all hunted and had a great time. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Next question I have for you is, what is on your bucket list? What's a once in a lifetime hunt for you that you have not gotten to do yet?
hands down, New Zealand free range red stag,
Mm.
backcountry red stag. Like I said, so my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a deer color for the New Zealand government back in the 50s when they were just everywhere, or late 40s really. But yeah, he was issued a World War I rifle and told to go shoot deer. Um, Now it's obviously more of a hunt, but yeah, I would love the opportunity to hunt red stag in New Zealand. I've actually got a map up behind my computer here of the area that his block where he was pulling red stag. And I've got some of his journals, so I know like exactly what drainages he was in. And so my ideal hunt would be to either helicopter or hike into some of those drainages and hunt red stag,
That's
ideally with
awesome.
an old rifle.
I was gonna ask if you were gonna try to do it with that rifle
I
back
would
there.
love to do it. Love to do it with the old iron sight rifle. Yep.
That's awesome, man. What a cool thing. I hope you get to do it. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I'll ask you as we wrap it up in conclusion, kind of going full circle back to some of the stuff that we talked about with just hunting Colorado in general and everything. Um, if you were to give some advice to a guy that is just wanting to come hunt Colorado for the first time, it can be deer, it can be elk, just something normal, I guess I would say like that, right? But somebody who they don't know what they're up against when it comes to figuring out where they need to go, what tags they need, who they need to hunt with. You got any advice for somebody that's just asking those initial questions right now?
Yeah, so CPW website's your best resource for finding all your tag information. It takes a little bit of deciphering to do, but there's plenty of resources on their website to give you insight as to how many points it's going to take to draw a certain unit. Um, Onyx is your best friend in determining how much public land and where you can camp, where you can hunt, all that. As far as being out west, Colorado property lines are not required to be marked, and you can still trespass without knowing it. So, highly recommend Onyx or some other GPS function. Um, Cardio, you know,
Yeah.
get in good shape. I'm in pretty good shape at the end of the summer, going into elk season, and opening day is still I can't show it because I've got a client behind me, but I'm dying, at 12,000 feet, trying to puff it along a hillside. It takes the wind out of you. So the best shape you can possibly be in is only going to help you in an elk or a mule deer hunt. Um, Play the wind. A lot of guys just plow around without checking the wind. Get one of the little wind puffers and use your glasses, use your binoculars a lot more than you use your feet. You can save yourself a lot of time and effort by doing a lot more glassing than a lot more hiking.
Yeah. Good advice. I'm glad that even a Colorado guy is struggling on the mountains because I know I same deal. I feel like I'm in pretty good shape and I'm a fireman down here in Texas
Right.
and I yeah, go up to Idaho and camp at 6,800 feet and hunt at 8,000 every day and feel like I'm about to die. So
Yeah.
almost did die, felt like. So
Yeah. Where I guide our lodge camp area is at 10,000 feet. So everything we hunt is from there up. So
wow.
even just campsite or the lodge, the cabins and everything is really high. And we've had guys show up and I had a client a few years back. He had to leave after 2 days because he had woke up at 2 in the morning with heart arrhythmia and high blood pressure. And doctor's like, if that happens again, you gotta go. And he had to go home.
Wow.
It happens, but yeah,
Yeah. When you think you're in shape, you're probably not. Do a little bit
yeah,
more.
yep.
Well, John, thanks, man, for coming on the show and accepting a TikTok invite to to do a podcast.
Oh man, that was so cool. I was like, sure, why not?
Yeah, that was kind of my end. Like I was reading some of your texts and your messages, and I was like, man, this guy would be sounds like it'd be pretty informative to have on the show. And I was like, yeah, why not? So
I saw that first TikTok and was like, I didn't even know what fall obsession was. I was just like, oh, cool, this guy's talking about Colorado. I'm like, I'm just gonna shoot him a message because why not? Like,
yeah.
let's just get that information out there, and here we are.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for watching the reel, shooting a message, now following along, and I hope it's not your only time on the show. I have a feeling it won't be. We'll probably do
Oh, I
another one at
appreciate that. I would love to come
sometime.
back.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good time. But speaking of TikTok, though, if anybody does want to follow you on TikTok, what's your handle and how can they find you?
Oh man, I think it's just John Kessler. I think 460. Sorry, let me look at TikTok real quick and tell you what my own. Yeah, it's either John Kessler 460 or Captain Juan 27.
All right. Perfect. Well, appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining us for an episode. And we'll do it again at some point.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. For our listeners, tune in. Thanks for listening. Back with you guys again next time. Catch you then.